And okay, I think we're ready to go. So, let me just bring this up here. So everybody's already talking about the movie in the chat. And we are here. Hello, and welcome to Torn Book Club. This is our special live review of the Battle of the Five Armies. But before we get into that, we're going to talk a little bit about normal book club stuff. So with me in the Skype window is Rebecca Perry, also known as Deej at theonering.net. So say hi.
Hi, everybody.
And she's graciously agreed to join me today to talk about the movie and other fun Torn stuff. Uh, and of course, we're getting the normal Ustream is not working properly on my device comments in the chat. This seems to happen a lot, and there's very little I can do about it, unfortunately. But we will press on. Since this is December, and December is adaptation month, our book of the month is The Martian by Andy Weir, which is being made into a movie as we speak. And I loved it. I hope that most other people enjoy it as well, anybody who's reading it. And before we get into the review, I should also talk about a little get-together that we are having in February. The One Last Party here in Los Angeles. We have an Indiegogo page where you can purchase tickets, or you can make a pledge to help support the party if you can't make it yourself. It's going to be a fantastic event. It's our last hurrah of these fantastic parties that we do almost every year. And you've helped out with these quite a bit, haven't you, Deej?
Well, unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to go to any of the Lord of the Ring parties.
Oh, okay.
Sadly, but I did help out with the first Hobbit party and was there, and it was so much fun.
That was a big one.
That was a really big one, and
Yeah.
it was really cool to be there in Hollywood, Oscars weekend. This last party is going to be, I think, even topping that one. I hope that everybody can join us for this final farewell to, all six films, and a great send off to Middle Earth, and a thank you to all the fans and the cast and the crew for, giving us this great series of films. I think it's going to be an amazing experience, and I hope that you can all join us in February for it.
Exactly. You took the words right out of my mouth. This is a really bittersweet one for me because I was working on all the parties starting with the Two Towers, and the only one that I didn't work on beyond that was the Desolation of Smaug Oscar party, because it was a smaller one. It was at a pub, and I was otherwise occupied because my best friend's wedding was the same day. So unfortunately, I missed that one. But yeah, this is our big one, and it feels weird that all this is finally coming to an end. At least party wise, the community is still going to keep going, like no matter what.
Yes, Torn will still be around for a very long time, I think.
Oh yeah. Like I've said it before many times, there was Tolkien fandom long before the movies came out, and it will be around long after the movies are done. So
yes, definitely.
So why don't we get into the review of the Battle of the Five Armies. Now, since this hasn't been officially released in America just yet, it comes out officially this coming Wednesday. We're going to keep light on the spoilers. What that means is anything that was in the book is fair game to talk about. Other than that, we'll try to keep stuff vague, not reveal anything that's too plot crucial, any big surprises. Which, when I think back on it, I really can't think of any like big surprises in this movie. But
Yeah, there might have been one or two things that.
maybe, maybe. I mean, there were when I went to see it, there were definitely a couple startled gasps at certain points, but these were clearly people who had not read the book and didn't know that this was coming.
Yes, yes.
Um,
But there may be one or two things that people are expecting to see
mhm.
that happen or don't happen.
Yeah, yeah, there might be a few. There were certain things from the book that didn't make it into the movie that I was kind of sad about, and there were lots of additions that I was kind of like interesting, not too thrilled with that, and then there were others that I liked. Um, but so general first impressions, I overall really enjoyed it. What do you think?
I did as well. I personally think that of the three Hobbit films, I think it's probably my favorite. Um, Having only seen it once, I'm going to see it again on Monday for the marathon, and then
Hmm.
Tuesday for the kind of official line party.
Yeah,
But yeah, I think the performances were great. The battle, which that kind of had to have been
yeah.
that it would if that hadn't have been good, there was they
Well,
kind of
yeah.
shouldn't have
When
called it Battle of the Five Armies.
yeah, when the battle is the title of the movie, it better be a dang good battle.
Exactly, and I think it is the battle to end all battles in any of the Middle Earth films, and
I would have
this
to
really
agree.
just definitely didn't disappoint.
No, no, it didn't. I really liked a lot of the battles. I liked, and I actually want to call it battles plural because there were many different aspects to it. Like, of course, there's the big one at the gates of Erebor, which I thought was superbly well done. Just the way they show all the different formations of the armies, um, and how they operated and how they worked together and against each other, I thought was very well done and better than anything that we've seen so far in these movies. I would think. Um, but then you also have battles in the streets of Dale, and then you have the climactic one-on-one battles to the death between just about everybody,
Right.
which for me I felt was a little drawn out, but then it kind of had to be. But that was just my opinion. There was like towards the end, I was like, okay, we all know where this is going. Can we just get to the death blow?
Yeah, yeah. Well, what I was really excited to see was the dwarves fight, the dwarf
Yeah.
army, because we've seen it. We've seen elven armies before. We've seen the men. We've seen
Hmm.
orcs,
Yeah.
but we hadn't really seen thousands and thousands of dwarves kicking butt, and
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool. Headed up, of course, by Dane Ironfoot, who
Yeah.
did not disappoint. It took me a minute to realize that that was Billy Connolly, but the moment he spoke, there was no doubt at
Yeah.
all
There was
who
no
that
doubt at
was.
all. Like
I
I.
thought he looked amazing. The
Yeah.
the costume, the design, the makeup and hair
I
was
thought.
really cool. I
I thought he
thought.
looked great, and like as soon as he spoke, I was like, "Wow!" Like he is so extremely Scottish.
Yes, definitely.
Like I mean, like even more so than Graham McTavish as Dwalin.
Yeah, 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 and yeah, more so than he was the most Scottish of any character, I think, in any of the films.
Yeah, and that sort of comes across even in the way he fights. Like he fights like a true Scotsman.
Yes, definitely. It was very, you know, come at me, bro.
Yeah,
He's not afraid of anything. He's not backing down
yeah,
in the slightest.
and even when he's in the thick of it, he's sort of like casual about it. He's like, okay, so this is happening. By the way, where's Thorin?
Right, right.
Um, so just looking at some of the comments that are going on in the chat. Uh, Light of the King is saying, "Love the Bilbo and Thorin scenes. Cried so much." I thought Martin Freeman and Richard Armitage were fantastic in this movie. Um, just their performances, the emotion that they brought to it. Um, Richard Armitage, I thought, did a fantastic job with depicting Thorin's descent into madness through the course of the movie and his redemption. I thought he handled it very well.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that could have easily gone over the top,
Yeah,
what he did, but he reined it in just enough that you could just see him almost, standing on that precipice of madness, looking down and knowing what was coming. And just, it was heartbreaking to me, I thought. And he just,
yeah.
that performance was just fantastic. And yeah, and any of the scenes between him and Martin Freeman were just
Like
brilliant, I thought.
there's just so many great moments between them. Like particularly, I think there's a moment where Thorin takes Bilbo aside and confesses to him, "I think somebody has stolen the Arkenstone." Like, not realizing that Bilbo is the one who has done
Right.
it.
Right.
And
Yeah.
but of all the dwarves or all the members of the company, Bilbo is the one he trusts. And I'm like, oh god, when he reveals to him that he's the one who's taken the Arkenstone, it's going to destroy him.
Yeah.
And sure enough, it did.
Yeah, that was a hard scene to watch. It was just, again, it just kind of broke my heart to see the look on Thorin's face when he realizes it was Bilbo all the time. And
Yeah.
um,
And
yeah, poor
and
Thorin.
yeah, but there. One of the things I liked about this, and I think that this is something that I feel that Peter Jackson is very strong at doing. He's very skilled at doing this, but yet I don't think he gets enough credit. Is he is really good at doing very weird dream sequences, and when he starts showing like the big scene where Thorin is finally like at the precipice, he's about to go over, he's by himself and sort of like battling with his demons. Like I thought it was visually an incredibly wonderful scene.
Yeah, I agree. And again, it's one of those things that it very easily could have looked silly. I
Mm-hmm.
think it had been in someone else's hands, but
Yeah,
the way Richard portrayed it, it was just, really, really cool. And again, just so sad to see him the moment that he realizes he's going mad.
yeah. And this is of course after like just about everybody has had their moment to tell him, dude, you're going about this all wrong.
Right. You're becoming your father and grandfather,
Yeah.
and he can't see it, and then finally when he finally realizes that, oh God, yeah, I am, this
Mm-hmm.
is happening to me too. It
Yeah.
was just, again, such an amazing performance from Richard Armitage.
Yeah, yeah. And again, and I don't think I'm spoiling anything with this because this is a scene from the book, Thorin's death. Um, I thought that was an amazing scene between him and Bilbo, and the two of them together, just like having that moment. And I was really surprised, like how closely the dialogue in that bit stuck to the book. I was expecting maybe something a little bit more flowery or something a little bit more conversational, but they really did stick very close to the dialogue in the book, and they both pulled it off so exceptionally well.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's one of the scenes. I mean, it was, to me, kind of like with Riddles in the Dark, where they couldn't really mess around with it too much from the
Yeah.
book. They really needed to leave it, because it's such a great scene in the book that
Yeah.
there was really no reason for them to change it around too much in the
Hmm.
film. And so I was really glad, like you said, that a lot of the dialogue was Thorin's kind of what he says to Bilbo is pretty much what he says in the book. And
Yeah.
um
I mean,
and that
there's like
was
maybe a couple little alterations here and there, but nothing major.
right. And but yeah, I I was okay up until that point, and then that's when I started getting a little teary-eyed.
Yeah. Ava is saying that was amazing, but they cut it too short. Can't say what happened next, but didn't like it. Uh, fair. It's fair.
Yeah, and that's I guess there are certain scenes in this last film that I thought they cut too short. They didn't spend
Yeah.
enough time on.
Yeah.
Whereas, I mean, and in the book they really don't spend a lot of time on it either.
Yeah.
But
But
I
with this
still would have
movie,
liked a bit more time. And I know it's really hard to give, you've got 13 dwarves and Gandalf and Bilbo and all these characters, and it's really hard to give them all the time that they deserve.
yeah.
But that is, one qualm that I've actually had with all of the films, but I think this one in particular is that there were certain characters that I really wish they would have spent a bit more time on
Yeah,
and given
I
them a
can.
little bit more, a little, flesh them out a bit more, given them a little bit more to say or do.
Yeah.
And then on the other hand, there were certain characters that I didn't really think needed that much time that
Hmm.
got a lot more than I thought that they needed.
Yeah.
Without, and again, trying not to get into spoilers or
Yeah.
anything
This
like
is
that. But
this is kind of it's not really plot spoilery, but it is sort of like character spoilery at least. And I know exactly who you're talking about because we talked about this. We chatted about this yesterday. Um, and
and having spoken to a lot of other people,
Mhm.
I think everyone out listening probably has an idea of who I'm talking about also.
Yeah, yeah. It seems like a lot of people in the chat have already seen the movie. We've got a lot of people from Europe, which the movie is already like
Right.
out in general release there. Um, so, but yeah, this one character in particular, I sort of felt like they resolved his arc fairly early on in the movie, and I was like, okay, fine. And then he keeps coming back, and then he keeps coming back, and then he keeps coming back over and over again, basically doing the same thing, and
Right. And
it,
I kept thinking, we get it. We get why this character, we get who he is and why he is who he is. You don't need to keep hitting us over the head
yeah, I
with it.
mean, if they were going somewhere with it, then okay, fine. But they ultimately didn't.
Right. And that's what I kept expecting was that, oh, this character is going to play a larger part in the story than I previously had thought. And I kept waiting for it. And then nothing really happened.
Yeah,
And
yeah, there
I
was
kind of
no.
thought, why did we just spend so much time with this character
Yeah,
for seemingly no reason at all?
yeah, there was no real payoff. And Temple in the chat points out when scenes seem cut short in the Hobbit movies, I always wonder if the reason for that is the extended editions, which fill in those scenes. And I feel like that's probably the case with a lot of this movie. There were many bits that I felt like, oh, I wish that was fleshed out more, and it probably will be in the extended edition.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, we saw that with Beorn in the second film,
Yeah,
that he was hardly in it at all in the theatrical, and they gave him a
yeah,
lot more to do in the extended,
yeah,
which is great. But I, I kind of wish that they had, you know, don't save everything for the extended, because
yeah,
not everybody, we're not, it's not everybody is going to maybe care about the extended. I mean, obviously us fans will, but,
yeah.
mainstream audiences will probably not
Yeah.
really
Well,
worry about
to
it.
to
And
that point, in the chat, Jan has just said, "I actually don't necessarily prefer the extendeds to the theatricals, at least for the previous movies." So, I mean, there are people there who actually prefer the theatrical editions to the extended editions, and I've always felt like the extended editions are sort of targeted more to the fans who want that extra bit. Um,
yeah, well, I would say in the case of the Lord of the Ring films, I
mhm.
think the extended editions are superior
I would agree,
because
absolutely.
in the case of The Hobbit, I'm gonna have to wait to see the extended of the third movie before I can decide. Because I mean, definitely with the second, I was glad that we saw a little bit more of Beorn. We kind
Yeah,
of understood him a little bit better than you might have
yeah,
in the theatrical had you not read the book. I mean, if you've read the book, then you didn't
then
really need that extra stuff, but you
yeah.
haven't read the book. Some
Well,
of maybe why he was the way he was didn't really make as much
yeah.
sense.
But what
Um,
but some of the stuff that I liked with the Beorn stuff was how his um his scene actually played into why Gandalf leaves and goes to the High Fells. And
right.
so that when and it made it feel more organic so that when he later on when he's in Mirkwood and he gets contacted by Galadriel, when he decides I have to go to the High Fells, it feels more logical and not so out of the blue.
Right, right. That's a really good point.
And I mean, and that's stuff like that that I felt really worked in the extended edition for Desolation. I felt like the extended edition for Unexpected Journey was all the additional stuff was really just filler, like and unnecessary. Didn't really add anything to the movie at all.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was kind of fun to see the dwarves a little bit more in Rivendell as a little bit more, I guess comic relief maybe.
Yeah,
But there wasn't really anything that I thought moved the story along. So I can kind of understand why that stuff was left out of the theatrical and put into the extended. But
hmm
I think, Desolation, there was definitely some of the stuff that was left out, really helped the story, in my opinion.
yeah, I agree, and I feel like that's probably going to be the same way with Battle of the Five Armies. Again with Beorn, because he's one of the characters who gets really short shrift in this movie.
Yeah, yeah, he does. Uh,
Him
I
and
would,
Radagast also, who
and
I
Radagast and the Necromancer, which I hope that's
yeah.
not too much. Well, I hope that's not too much of a spoiler, but
No,
um,
I don't think
I
it's too spoilery just to say that all the stuff in Dol Guldur went by very fast. Like I was expecting there to be
yeah,
more than that.
and to me that's kind of a big deal because that really does set up the Lord of the Rings.
Mm-hmm.
Him getting driven out, and
Yeah,
I wanted to see this just epic throwdown between the Necromancer and
and somebody.
the council, and you did see that a glimpse of it, and I guess again hopefully that there'll be a bit more of that in the extended edition, but I thought
Yeah.
that scene was over much too quickly, and I was not disappointed because the scene was great, but I really wanted to see a little bit more
Yeah, yeah.
of what happened.
Now, Ava makes a really good point in the chat. She was talking about having seen it now. I really kind of wish that the death of Smaug had been in the end of Desolation and not the beginning of the Battle of the Five Armies. And I have to say, I kind of agree with her on that. Um,
Yeah, yeah, I do as well. It was a great scene, but
yeah,
it really there was no reason to really tack it on at the beginning
yeah,
of this movie. They could have easily added another 10, what's another 10 minutes to the running time of the
yeah.
second
That
film,
and that was the
and
thing. Like the
had it end there, and
Yeah, and
would have
like
been
that was the thing. Like the whole confrontation, the whole attack on Lake Town, Bard, getting the Black Arrow and killing Smaug. All that amounted to about 10 or 15 minutes, and
right.
and I'm
And
like,
again, a scene that was over pretty quickly.
yeah,
Uh, and it's something, easily I think would have been a really cool way to have ended the second film.
yeah. I felt like that movie needed a proper climax rather than a cliffhanger, and it's not like there was nothing else going on in the Battle of the Five Armies. Like there was plenty
Right.
going on in that movie. You didn't need this extra stuff.
Right. I mean, the battle itself, I think, takes up about 45 minutes of the film.
Hmm
So yeah, it's not like, that, and again, that's definitely something to me. I almost was thinking like, oh, that just seems like too much time to take on this, but it really didn't feel like 45 minutes at all to me. I
hmm
thought that actually went by fairly quickly.
Yeah, I did. I did too. Simply Smaug is asking, does Smaug have an awesome death scene visually? I would say it's good. It's
Yeah,
decent.
yeah, it's pretty cool. It's I don't want to say it's comedic.
Mm-hmm.
but there is an aspect to it.
Yeah.
Again, without trying to be spoilery,
Yeah, and I know what you're talking about,
there's a
and
slight aspect to it that's slightly humorous, but
I wouldn't say
his
humorous, but
his
almost kind of silly in its depiction.
yeah, 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 I agree. But no, I mean the whole, you know, him desolating Lake Town was very impressive, and he does get a good kind of final speech in, which
Yeah.
I liked. And
Yeah, I did like that. Like, I mean, there was a part of me that was like, okay, how it was kind of like him like give it was kind of like somebody giving a speech to a mosquito that keeps bugging you. Because through most of it, like when Smaug is flying over the town, Bard is taking pot shots at him with a regular bow and arrow, and of course they're just like bouncing off him like nothing. And then he turns and like and finally just gives like this big speech to Bard, and I'm like, who does that?
yeah, like, well, I think it's just due to Smaug's his arrogance. Like,
Yeah,
really, puny little human, you think you can take me out with one of your silly little arrows?
yeah,
And
that's
it's
true.
almost like he's taunting him. You know, he's like, well,
Yeah,
before I kill you, I'm going to make fun of you.
yeah, which is like now that I think about it, like when you transpose that onto the idea of somebody giving a speech like that to a mosquito, yeah, you'd have to be a real egotistical jerk to do something like that,
Right,
and that's totally Smaug.
right.
So, I mean, I liked I love the destruction of Lake Town. I loved how Smaug attacks the whole thing. Like I thought that was very well done. It's great action. There's tons of Bard running on rooftops, which is also pretty fun. Um, let's see, the chat is just going nuts here. Uh, Ava is bringing up a good point of like we never got a visual of just seeing the body of Smaug laying at the bottom of the lake, which was in the book, and I feel like that probably would have been cool to see.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking that maybe when Bilbo heads back to the Shire and maybe he's going past Lake Town,
Yeah,
I was kind of thinking that maybe we'd see that, and we
yeah.
may still in the extended.
It could
Um,
be that could be something that's in the extended, like because I mean it would be nice just to have that moment because Smaug was such a major part of this story, and to have him just sort of vanish
yeah,
after
and
50
and they
minutes.
do say in the book that even years later, his bones, you can still see a skeleton in the lake, and
Yeah,
I mean, obviously, it wouldn't have probably been quite a skeleton at that point. It hadn't been that long, but
yeah.
I do kind of think it would have been, and it would be such a Peter Jackson thing to do to
Hmm.
see this, giant dead dragon in the middle of Lake Town while they're rebuilding or
Yeah.
something.
Which would have been an
Um,
awesome visual. Like, I think
yeah,
that would have been a really cool visual.
yeah, and again, who knows? Maybe
Yeah.
we'll see something like that in the extended. So
Maybe we will. Um, so, yeah, I should point out, Light of the King is talking with people in the chat about how she actually got into the LA premiere um, out here. Because one of the things that they did was after the red carpet or the black carpet, Warner Brothers actually went across the street to all the fans and gave out probably about 1,000 tickets to the fans
oh
to actually
wow,
go into the theater and watch the movie with the cast.
lucky,
Yeah, and Light of the King was one of the people who got that.
nice.
Yeah, and like
Wow.
the real bummer of it was Kelly and Alex, who do a Happy Hobbit, they were, of course, on the black carpet
Yeah,
interviewing
yeah.
everybody, which was very cool. But they also had some friends in the fan group across the street, and when they were handing out tickets, one of their friends said, "Oh, I'd like some," and like, "Well, how many do you need?" "Oh, 5." Where are your other friends? Well, 2 of them are across the street on the red carpet, and the guy immediately shuts him down and goes, "Oh, we can't have press in there."
Oh,
And it's like they're not pressed. They're fans who are on the red carpet.
oh, that stinks.
Yeah, so that was unfortunate, but I do know that Kelly and Alex really did want to see the movie for the first time with fans at the big opening line party, so they probably wouldn't have gone in anyway.
Yeah. Well, it's
But
very nice of their friends to at least try to get them in.
yeah, yeah, um, it was, and unfortunately, I missed the whole thing. I was at work. I've
Stupid real life gets in the
and
way of fan. I hate when, when real
the
life gets in the way of fandom like that. It's
yeah
terrible.
the worst part is I work 10 minutes away from where the premiere was happening,
Oh,
and I didn't get out of work until after it ended, and then just drove up and met up with everybody just to at least have dinner
right.
and say hi to everybody.
Yeah. Well, I'm actually calling and I'm taking a couple of sick days on Monday and
Yeah,
Tuesday. So don't tell my job so that I can go and have this last big hurrah with the films and to see it with all my friends.
yeah, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing it with the fans on Monday. Now I do have tickets to the whole Monday marathon thing, but I may just come for the last movie. I don't know if I can sit through the whole trilogy.
Yeah, I may have to get up maybe halfway and go out and get some dinner or something and not
Yeah,
come back.
yeah, like
Now that we all know, when we can get up and leave and
yeah, yeah, um,
we know when the good breaks are.
yeah. But yeah. So I'm gonna be doing the line party here with Cliff and Justin and everybody at the Chinese theater. And you're doing a line party in Atlanta, aren't you?
Yes, if anyone in the Atlanta area is listening, it'll be Tuesday at the Regal Atlantic Station, which is in Midtown Atlanta. It'll be the 7 o'clock IMAX 3D showing. We've got loads of people coming in costume, and there's some amazing costumers in the Atlanta area. Just incredible. And I'll have some cool stuff from Weta and Houghton Mifflin and Warner Brothers to give away for trivia and cool costumes. So if you haven't yet gotten your tickets and you're in the area, please come and hang out with us.
Very cool. And same goes for anybody in LA. Last time I checked, there were still plenty of tickets available at the Chinese theater for both the Monday marathon and the Tuesday 7 o'clock screening, which we will be doing line parties for both. So so please, everybody in LA, if you can, please come. We'd love to see it. We're gonna have trivia contests. We're gonna have giveaways. We're gonna have prizes, all that fun stuff, and also just the fan fellowship, and being able to see this movie among fans is really fun. Like the screening that I went to on the screening that I went to on Thursday was there were some fans in there, and actually I bumped into a few friends in line. But it was mostly people who won tickets from a radio contest and who didn't really care too much about the movie. So there wasn't like that strong reaction to it that I was kind of hoping to experience. So hopefully we'll have that on Monday and Tuesday. Um,
So Josh, can I ask you really quick?
yeah.
What scene from the book were you most happy to see make it into the film?
Honestly, I'm gonna say the auction of Bag End, because I thought that one was definitely gonna hit the cutting room floor. Um, and it's a nice return to the Shire for Bilbo, and sort of like after this huge adventure he's gone on, comes home and suddenly like horrible stuff in real life that seems so mundane in comparison but is still just as effective is happening to him because everybody thought he was dead.
Right.
And so I liked that, and I liked that we got a shot of a young Lobelia Sackville Baggins. and and Yeah, that was the stuff that I did like that was added just because, or that's the stuff that I was glad made it in, just because I thought it wasn't gonna make it in. What was yours?
Yeah, actually, it was the same thing.
Yeah.
Because again, it was a scene that I was thinking I wasn't sure if we were going to see it. Like, I figured we'd probably see it in the extended edition, but I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't sure if it'd make the theatrical. But and just that whole bit of him walking, seeing everybody walk off with his stuff, and then confronting Lobelia over the silver spoons, and it's such, and I guess it's not a big thing in the book, but it's just such a cool little moment, and I just
Yeah.
really wanted to see that, and
Yeah.
it made me so happy to get to see that on the screen, and then to have him, go, finally arrive back in Bag End after everything that he'd been through.
Yeah. Yeah.
It made me happy. I thought it was a really nice way to end the film.
Yeah. Now, Ava is bringing up a good point of a scene that was in the book but not in the movie that really should have been, and I do agree with this. Is Thorin's funeral, um, where he's given a tomb
It's
and
a little spoiler, I guess, but
eh, book spoiler. But like they lay the Arkenstone on the tomb, which I think would have a much bigger impact in this movie than it probably would have in the books, just because so much attention is given to the Arkenstone. Um, um, and also like it's just it's a good way to sort of bring closure to that whole storyline, and also to show Dane becoming king under the mountain. And
right.
I feel like that after everything they've been through, it really did need a lot bigger resolution than what we got, or at least more closure than what we got. And who knows, maybe it'll be in the extended edition. I hope so.
Yeah, yeah. I also kind of wanted to see, and again, I doubt this will make it, into the extended either, but the scene in the book where, Balin comes back to visit Bilbo
Yeah.
in the Shire, and I just thought that was a really nice moment again in the book, and I don't expect it to show up. I'd be really surprised if it showed up in the extended edition, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I just still thought that was a really nice, cool moment. That would have been cool to have seen
Hmm.
on the screen, but maybe they just felt that it wasn't needed.
Yeah, yeah, maybe. Like, and for that, I can kind of, I do understand that, but I sort of thought that scene would make a good lead into the Fellowship of the Ring, but how they actually did the lead into the Fellowship of the Ring was quite unexpected, and I thought really well done. And I'm not going to say any more.
Yeah, again, that brought a few tears to my eyes as
Hmm.
well.
Yeah, it was a really nice way of bringing it full circle, and the way they played it, like it was very touching. Um,
Yeah, I agree.
and one thing I will say to everybody: no, Frodo does not make another appearance in this movie. I felt like Frodo's appearance in the first one was stretching it.
Yeah, I thought it worked. I mean, the way that they did it, and I think they probably could have made it work in this one as well. But I'm
Maybe.
okay. I'm okay with him not showing up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and given what they did instead, like really sort of works for me. Like
yeah,
it works for me in a big way. Um, Jan is asking, what did you think about the CGI? Um, I liked it. Uh, there wasn't there wasn't too much in it that I felt was like jarringly out of place, except for maybe a couple of the trolls.
yeah, and Legolas, I thought was
Yeah,
a
yeah.
little weird. Like, I
Legolas has
know they're
always
trying to
looked
make him.
weird.
Yeah, and I know they're trying to, but it looked even more obvious
Mm-hmm.
that they've, airbrushed his face
Yeah.
in this one than in the second film. To me, it was even more so. He almost looks like his video game character, in a way,
Mm-hmm.
and that was a
Yeah.
little that sort of took me out of it a bit. Like, I don't want to notice that. And Dane, I think they did that a little bit with Dane as well. because
Hmm.
I thought and it was either that or just the makeup look. Something doesn't look quite real about it.
There was something weird about Dane, but like at least from the further away shots, which I just chalk up to them trying to make Billy Connolly look smaller.
Yeah, that could be. And and like I said, the first time you watch a movie, I mean, I'm looking at, and I'm sure everyone else says this too, there's so much going on and you're trying to look at 5, 10 things at the same time.
Yeah,
I think it's going to take a couple more screenings for me to be able to,
yeah,
look at different things and get a clearer opinion on it. But yeah, the CGI on some of the actors to me was the most distracting.
yeah, yeah. For some reason, like yeah, Legolas looked pretty silly in CGI. Tariel didn't look that bad when they CGI'd her, I thought, or at least not as obvious.
Yeah, well, just like the close-ups of her, she looked like her.
Mm-hmm.
But just with Legolas, when he's just standing there, I mean, his face looked so like they're trying to make him look like he looked in
Yeah,
Lord of the Rings, and
yeah,
it just looked really odd. And not, I mean, or to me, Orlando Bloom doesn't really look like he's aged much, anyhow. So I'm not really sure why they needed to do that, but
I guess because having him look older when he's supposed to be 60 years younger would be weird.
yeah, well, he doesn't even really look. I didn't even really think he looked that much older,
Yeah,
uh, but again, I just, and I know why they felt they had to do it, but it just still looked odd to me.
yeah, yeah, and um, and Ava was agreeing with me about the trolls. Like, I didn't like the look of a lot of the trolls in this. Like, there's one in particular that I felt looked a lot like the mountain troll from the first Harry Potter movie,
Yes, I know
and I
exactly
was
what you're
like,
talking about.
oh, he looks really doofy, not threatening at all.
Yeah, that's the problem that I've had. I mean, with all the movies, like with Azog and Bolg, is that they decided to go with the CGI characters over the guys in the makeup and suits,
Yeah,
and to me, it's just they looked like video game characters.
for the most part,
I wouldn't really feel like they were scary looking at all, or I
no,
just wasn't impressed with it, and it just to me it just kind of took me out of the movie a little bit.
I agree with you for the most part with that. I do feel like um, Azog and Bolg looked better in this than they had in the previous movies. Um, and I think that's just because they had more time to perfect the way they looked. I thought Azog's fight with Thorin was very well done, um, and it looked pretty much like two people fighting, as opposed to one guy fighting a CG character. At least to me.
Yeah, no, I do agree that they definitely did improve upon the
Hmm.
CGI. It didn't feel as rushed, especially the first movie. To me, it felt
Hmm.
like that CGI felt rushed.
Yeah, it
And
did.
obviously, I think it was. They were against time to get the movie out, and so they had a lot more time with this one. But yeah, I don't know. Going back and like I said, I just gone back and watched Lord of the Rings, and to me, those guys just felt. I don't know. I guess I prefer the makeup and the suits over the CGI.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I mean, I'm always one of those people who will say practical will always look better than CGI. Um,
Right.
and I think the first Lord of the Rings trilogy is a testament to that fact, um, or at least to that assertion of mine.
Right. No,
um,
I totally agree.
and that isn't to say that the CG in this was bad. I thought it was very good. I thought the way they did the locations was very well done. Um, I thought Dale looked great. I thought Erebor looked great. Um,
Yeah, yeah. Oh, it did. Yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah,
and
the
and they always have.
locations always have looked good.
Yeah,
It's I've never had a problem with the locations or anything. It's just when they try to do kind of characters that are on screen for more than a second or more, that aren't part of a
yeah,
large army.
yeah.
It's
Well,
sort of and with the exception of Gollum, I will
yeah,
say
like I would
Gollum
say
is
Gollum and Smaug.
perfect.
Yeah,
Yeah, Gollum and Smaug. I and I think that the motion capture helps, and I know that they also did that with Azog
Hmm.
and Bogue as well. But for some reason, I don't know why, it just to me didn't feel as solid. I don't. Yeah.
Yeah,
And again, maybe I just need to go back and watch it again.
maybe. Well, for one, I saw it in 3D, and 3D for me always makes everything feel a little bit faker. Uh,
Yeah, that's true.
um,
The
and
high frame rate definitely accentuates that as well, I
yeah,
think.
yeah, and I haven't seen it in the high frame rate yet. I'm seeing that on Monday. But I'm not too thrilled with the high frame rate, and kind of hoping that it will just sort of quietly disappear after these movies are done.
I have to agree with you, and I know that Peter Jackson's a big fan of it, and I know a couple other directors are,
Hmm.
and that's fine. But
Yeah.
I just personally don't really
There
care.
there is something there is something about the old school practical film quality of stuff that just sort of makes it feel more organic for some reason.
Yeah, yeah, and maybe we're just it's when I the first time I saw a high def show on television.
Hmm.
I thought it was very odd, and it took me a long time to get used to it.
Yeah,
Maybe it'll be the same way with the films. Maybe
could
once
be.
we've seen a lot more films in that, if it does catch on, then we'll all get used to it and it'll be fine. But
Hmm.
it just sort of takes me out of the world of that whatever film I'm watching.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. It's sort of it takes me out a bit, and like I will say in this movie's defense, in Battle of the Five Armies defense, the 3D is not overdone in this. Like I thought it was used sparingly and used more subtly. Like there wasn't stuff just like flying out in your face, as much as there was in the previous two movies, which I appreciated.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I mean, there's a really nice moment where it's snowing,
Hmm.
and it's almost like the snow is coming down into the theater, and I thought that it actually looked really cool, and it was very pretty, and but it wasn't like, yeah, things flying in your face. It was just
Yeah,
very subtle but very well done, and things
yeah,
like that I thought they did really well.
yeah. I thought that was very well done. And and I mean, I was sort of expecting a lot more stuff flying in your face, just because this movie is mostly battle. Um,
Right.
but
Arrows, and yeah, yeah.
but there wasn't, and I appreciated that. Um, and let's see what else is there to talk about. I'm trying to keep up with the chat, but there's so much going on. Um,
Yeah, there's not too much more we can talk about without getting into some heavy spoilers, I think. Movie
yeah,
spoilers.
yeah, like big movie spoilers. Like, um, okay, there was a lot of discussion when we were putting together our panels for conventions. Um, for some reason, some people really wanted to talk about um, Gandalf's and Radagast's staffs, because clearly Gandalf has a different staff in the first two movies. It's destroyed, and then we see him, and then he has a different staff in Lord of the Rings, but that staff looks like Radagast's. And so everybody's like, well, is there going to be a handoff? What is the science behind staffs? Is he going to make him a new one, or all this? And I'm like, that doesn't really matter too much. Like,
Well, there was some also discussion, at least at the conventions that I participated
mm-hmm,
in that if there was a handoff, a wizard wouldn't necessarily just give his staff to somebody,
mm-hmm,
unless perhaps that wizard passed on.
right,
And
and
so there was definitely some discussion about that happening.
yeah, but I mean that's the thing. Tolkien never really went into much detail about how wizard staffs operate. Um, aside from Gandalf destroying Saruman's staff in Return of the King, and sort of, or I guess that was Two Towers, that happens in the book.
Right.
Um, or was it? I don't remember. but but it was sort
I
of
think it
like a,
happened at in the book. I think it happened. I want to say it happened in the Two Towers, but in the movie, I think it was the extended. It was the extended
it was the
edition that it
extended Return of the
happened
King.
at the
Yeah,
beginning of at the very beginning of Return of the King. Yeah.
yeah. Um, but it's but he destroys his staff, or he breaks his staff, and I guess that's supposed to be like symbolic of him taking away his power or taking
Right.
away his authority. But again, it's left kind of vague. Um, so whether or not there was a handoff, or whether or not Radagast dies and Gandalf takes his staff, or whether or not Radagast is like, just here, take this one. You need it more than I do, and I just fashioned it out of a tree branch, and there are plenty of trees around here. Like, I really don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And and again, Tolkien was vague on that.
Right.
Um,
And
but
again, extended edition.
yeah,
I
and it
keep I
probably
keep going.
and it
I
probably
hate
will
going
be.
back to that
Yeah,
constantly like, well, the stuff. Well, and I kind of wish that Peter wouldn't. I mean, and again, I understand certain things that maybe don't work in the film that you just want to put in the extended, but um, I at the same time almost feel like he almost relies on that almost too much, that too many things that he can just say, well, it doesn't, we can just stick it in the extended edition. That's
yeah.
fine.
Rebecca, could you move to your left a little bit? You're sort of out of frame. There you go.
Is that better?
There,
Okay.
better. Okay. Um, so, yeah, I mean, there's, because what we see in this is after the Dol Guldur battle, Radagast spirits Gandalf away in his bunny sled. So we get the bunny sled again, yay! And I think there's like a quick scene between them where Gandalf is recovering and he says, "Oh, I need to get to Erebor. They don't know what's coming."
Right. And he
And
wants to go warn them.
yeah,
Yeah.
and he leaves, and next thing we see is Gandalf on his way to Erebor. He shows up in Dale, and he's got Radagast's staff. So so clearly there is probably a scene that will be in the extended edition that shows what exactly happened there.
Right. Why he has that staff. Yeah.
Hmm. Uh, so what is everybody talking about? They're talking about uh, Jan and film school. Apparently, Jan he's in Denmark and he goes to film school there, and I guess he just recently convinced his principal to do an extended Lord of the Rings marathon.
Nice.
So good for you, Jan. Good for pulling that off.
Yeah. I can't really see the chat. What people are talking about, but has anybody brought up Tauriel yet?
No one has really brought up Tauriel. Um,
Kind of surprising.
and I'm hesitant to bring that up just because anybody who has been to any of the panels that I've been on this year, I've been very staunchly standing behind a rather unpopular prediction about Tauriel. I won't say what it is. I will say, however, it turns out I was right, and um, I'm gonna lord this over Cliff for a while because he was shooting me down left and
Well,
right
you
on
can
this.
lord it over all of us because I mean the panels that I did at Dragon Con and New York Comic Con, we all of us that were on the panels
Hmm.
pretty much had the same theory about what was going to happen, and
It
we
it
were
turned
wrong.
it turns out I was the only one who
You
called
were
it.
the only one, so you should have placed money on that. You would have cleaned
I
up.
I really should have, but I'm now very glad that I stuck to my guns because there was a part of me that was like, you know what, I should just give up the ghost here. I'm probably wrong about it, but nope, no, I am. Yeah, I'm gonna lord this over Cliff and Justin for a while because they were both
As
very
you
like
should.
they were both very much like, oh, that is so not going to happen. You are so wrong about this.
Yeah, the next time you see them, So what were you saying, last year about
Hmm.
such and such happening?
Yeah. So, so yeah, and Ava points out we really can't talk about Tariel too much in any aspect without getting spoilery because Tariel is, of course, totally only in the movie. So anything we say about her,
This is true.
yeah. I mean, aside from like what was established in the last movie, which is like this sort of weirdish, romance-ish sort of thing going on between her and Keeley.
Yeah, I have to say, and I actually, unlike, it seems like the Tariel camp is split pretty much. You either really like her or you really don't.
Yeah.
I haven't met a lot of people that thought, yeah, she's all right. I didn't have a problem with that character in the film
Neither did I.
at all.
I actually
I
really
did
liked
have
her.
a problem with the love story. I thought was like really, I didn't really see why that was needed at all.
It felt
But her
forced,
as a
like,
character, I thought was totally cool and fine. And
and yeah, I think Ava agrees with you. She says, "I'm just going to say the Keely and Tariel scenes felt super awkward."
yeah, a little awkward. And not that elves and dwarves can't be together. I'm all
No.
for equality, but
Well,
yeah, it just felt really. Um, it didn't feel organic and natural. It just felt really
it did feel
weird
forced.
and
Yeah.
awkward, and like it was almost like an afterthought that they put that in there.
Yeah, like I think what made it so awkward was like whenever they would like, especially in this movie, whenever they would have like some sort of like even slightly tender moment, like Legolas would show up and Tariel would tense up and go like, "Oh God, can't show him that I'm actually kind of into a dwarf."
Right.
Which I mean, it's like I kind of wish that they had downplayed the idea of it like being like a love or a romance sort of thing and just been like the two of them share a connection because neither of them feel totally in place among their people.
Right. Or even like a friendship like Legolas and Gimli had,
Yeah.
where,
And,
it started off very antagonistic,
mhm.
but that mutual respect kind of started to come through. And then you started seeing little moments where,
Yeah.
they were, it kind of started off more, I think, begrudgingly, but then, it started where you could
Yeah.
genuinely see that they, really did, liked and admired each other, I think. And that I would have been totally fine with. But the whole, making eyes at each other and
Yeah.
stealing
Well,
little
well, the fact
glances, I
that
thought was a little
the
just
fact that it
not
starts off with
silly.
Keely in the last movie with Keely making a horrible, horrible lowbrow joke at her. You don't know what's down my pants. I, I to this day I will never forgive anybody who worked on the movie for putting that line in there. It was so bad. It it was so awful. And like
Yeah,
um,
it did not. It obviously the dwarves can be a little raunchy or whatever, but that just seemed again out of
it
it seemed out of character.
it seemed out of place and definitely out of character for Keeley because like what we see from him is like he's entranced by Tariel, so it's like you're immediately gonna go with a horribly cheesy pickup line.
Right.
Um, Light of the King is mentioning that she really likes their theme, the Feast of Starlight theme, and I have to agree. I really like that theme too, the musical theme.
Yeah, that is the only part of that whole thing
Yeah,
that is the music. And I mean, to me, Howard Shore can really do no wrong when it comes to the music in any of these films.
I
Uh,
sort of feel like for the most part, it feels like it's sort of a rehash of a lot of stuff, like particularly the battle stuff. But I think that's only because like a lot of that was already done in Lord of the Rings, and like you really can't you really can't improve on a good thing like that.
yeah, I mean, and we definitely did see them reuse a lot of the themes
Yeah,
because obviously the theme from Rivendell is going to be the same in Lord of the Rings as it was,
yes, yeah,
and The Hobbit, and certain thing. And I can see,
yeah,
he's using like whenever the dwarves are around, like their music is going to be very similar to,
yeah. And
So
I think that's the thing that because one of my friends like went on this big rant on my Facebook page about how Howard Shore is basically just phoning it in for this, and how he's just rehashing all of his old themes. He's not doing anything new, and I sort of have to disagree with that. Like, yes, there is a lot of revisits of old themes, like Rivendell. Like, I think there's a fantastic use of the Ring theme at the very end of this movie that I feel
Yeah,
really helps to bring it all full circle.
I would agree with that.
But I mean, there's also really good new stuff that he did do, like the Feast of Starlight theme. I thought was fantastic. I love the Misty Mountains song. That was really well done.
Yeah.
I love Dane Ironfoot's new theme. It's so good.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, it is something new, but at the same time, to me, it was recognizable as
Yeah.
being dwarvish.
Yeah, like it felt dwarvish. It felt like something that belonged in Middle Earth, but at the same time was still its own unique thing.
Right.
Um,
Right.
what was Jan saying? I wish there were more ways the Shire music could have been revisited, or something like that. Um, like I kind of like that the Shire theme is used sparingly in this, especially after they leave the Shire, and it's used more as sort of like a thematic reminder of where Bilbo comes from,
Right.
and I really like that. Um, and everybody in the chat is talking about how Kelly and Alex interviewed Howard Shore on the red carpet for the premiere, which was a really good Q&A session. They asked him a lot of good questions, and apparently nobody was talking to him on the red carpet, so he and his handler were just thrilled to talk to anybody.
Wow.
Which, it's a real shame that nobody else was talking to Howard Shore, because he is such a good composer.
He is. And I mean, I haven't really been to a lot of those red carpet things, but it
Mhm.
seems like, I'm sure the focus is always on the big celebrities
Oh yeah, yeah.
and not, and if you weren't in it, if you're not as well known a name, like maybe
Mhm.
some of the dwarves that aren't as big a name
Yeah.
aren't going to get the recognition that, say, Orlando Bloom is going to get, or, Peter Jackson, or, which
Mhm.
is, again, a shame because, I've talked to some of those guys and I've seen them in interviews, and they have a lot of really interesting things to say.
Yeah.
And they don't get as, they don't get a chance to express those viewpoints as often as I think they should.
Yeah, I sort of feel like most people like have interesting stuff to say, but of course everybody wants to talk to Orlando, everybody wants to talk to Richard Armitage or Martin Freeman,
Right.
or Peter Jackson.
And those guys are great too.
And there's nothing wrong with talking to them. I mean, they're wonderful people, and they give great interview.
Yeah.
But yeah, like a lot of the people on the press line are usually there for whatever can get the most hits, the most retweets, all that stuff. So of course they go for the big names, and then ask very canned questions. So of course everybody is giving the same answer. And one of the things that I heard was, or that Kelly and Alex were telling me, they were placed next to some guys from the local Fox affiliate, and there was an announcer during the premiere, and he was like really talking up like all the fans across the street, and he's like, we have a couple who are here from Texas or something like that, and the guy from Fox just rolls his eyes and goes, ugh.
Nice.
And it's like,
Wow.
okay.
That's a good way to alienate some of your fan base.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, okay, that's not, of course, like their fan base. It's a news affiliate and all that stuff, and they're just there for the interview, but it's like, really, do you have to be spiteful about it?
Oh.
But I mean, that happens. Like, we get that from people at our parties, even, like all the press people who have come to our parties, which of course is a fan party, but they're of course there for the celebrity guests.
Right.
So I've overheard many people at our parties, sort of like saying less than favorable things about the fans who are at the parties.
Yeah. Oh, I've heard, the line parties that I've hosted here in Atlanta, or other events that I've gone to, we get some people that dress up in costumes and do just phenomenal. I mean,
Yeah.
costumes. It's just, to me, it's like,
Yeah.
they should be working for Weta. I mean, these
Yeah.
costumes are so amazing, and
Oh yeah.
I can, and I've seen where they'll walk by, and people that aren't in that world will just look at them like they're the biggest freaks, or what is going on here, that obviously don't understand or care,
Hmm.
and that always makes me kind of annoyed that
Yeah. Yeah.
that happens.
Yeah. Okay. So Temple either is leaving or has left the chat. So bye, Temple. Uh, she has to get going. Um, but yeah, I mean, then like I'm just sort of used to that, like having dealt with it for so long. Like
Oh yeah.
yeah, like what?
I don't even tell my, like, people outside of my fandom, like, what I do, or that I went to New Zealand, and
Mm,
people would ask me, why would you want to go there?
why would you not want to go there?
I know that's my answer, like,
It's like Lord of the Rings aside, New Zealand is a gorgeous freaking country.
exactly, like, forget about those movies. It
Yeah.
is the most beautiful place I have ever been to. And, I can't think of any place else where in the space of a day you can go from the ocean to a desert to a glacier to the
That's
top of a
insane.
volcano. I mean, it's insane, and it's gorgeous, and the people are so friendly,
Yeah.
and yeah, it is also really cool to go to Hobbiton,
Yeah.
because it looks exactly like it does in the films now,
Oh,
and
it's
to
so cool.
go where, to the top of Mount Doom, and you can go, and see all these incredible places. But people that aren't into any of that stuff think that's weird, but yet they'll go to a football game and paint their face and wear
Yeah.
the colors of their sports teams. That's socially acceptable.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
putting on, some hobbit ears and, climbing up a volcano, that's
Hmm.
weird. I don't get that.
Yeah. Well, that's a rant for another day.
Yes, that could be a whole other book club
Yeah.
uh, conversation. But yeah,
Yeah.
we should maybe get back to the movie.
Okay. So a little earlier in the chat, Jan asked us just point blank. Okay, 1 to 10. How do we rate the Battle of the Five Armies? Um, you go first.
I am gonna give it a 9.
I
And
okay.
only because and like I said, earlier, the things that I had the problem with in this film are the same things that I've had a problem with in the previous two films.
Hmm.
It overall didn't take away from my enjoyment. I still think it was a really strong movie, and I think the performances were great.
Hmm.
Um, and I thought it was a very it if it ended very well.
Hmm.
But yeah, I really liked it, and and we'll see, though, my second and third viewings, if I still feel the same way.
Yeah. For me, I've only seen it once, so my initial first viewing of it, I'm I'm kind of torn between giving it an 8 or a 9, so I'm going to split the difference and give it an 8.5. um, like I thought it was a very strong movie. I thought it was a fantastic end to this trilogy, a good lead in to the Lord of the Rings. I thought it brought stuff full circle very well. I thought the action was very well done. The acting, the performances are phenomenal, like start to finish, from everybody, really. But in particular Martin Freeman and Richard Armitage, and I think that's mostly just because they had the most to work with of just about anybody.
Yeah, yeah. I can't now think of anyone other than Martin Freeman.
Hmm.
Oh, well, and of course, Ian Holm. But
Yeah.
and you may have brought this up on one of your previous shows, but
Hmm.
very early on, like right after Return of the King, a lot of people on the OneRing.net message board started talking about The Hobbit.
Right.
And it wasn't a question of will it get made, but when.
Right.
And we started talking about casting. And someone on our message boards very early on said, Martin Freeman would make a great Bilbo.
Yeah.
And we all said, yeah, actually he would. And
Yeah.
I would like to think that somebody up, high up in that production company saw that and said, yeah, hey, Martin Freeman, we should give him a call.
It was such a good call, and yeah, I know that happened very early on, and I know that a lot of our early Hobbit panels, where it was really just all speculation,
Yeah.
we were still putting out Martin Freeman as one of the contenders for Bilbo Baggins, among like a couple others who I think were sort of just given there just to sort of add some diversity to it. Because I think a lot of us were on the train of Martin Freeman needs to be Bilbo.
Yeah, and I remember that, like, we'd do panels and we'd put up a few names and people would go, yeah, okay. But then we'd put Martin Freeman and everyone would go, oh, yeah. And everyone would get so excited. And he got the biggest response, I think, of everybody. So
Yeah.
I would like to think that the OneRing.net has a small part to play in Martin Freeman getting that role.
I'm willing to bet that somebody somewhere at Warner or Peter Jackson's group or Weta or somebody saw what we were talking about and said, you know what? Let's bring Martin Freeman in for an audition just to say that we did. And like, he clearly blew him away because he got cast.
Right. I mean, he's a fantastic actor.
Yeah.
And, and I don't think it's an insult to say he does look a bit hobbity.
No, he does. Not only does he look a bit hobbity, he looks a bit like a young Ian Holm.
Yeah. You're right, he does.
And I like that he was able to do a lot of like the little affectations that Ian Holm established with Bilbo, like the little sniffle thing that he does.
Yeah.
I like that he does that.
Yeah, and going back and watching The Lord of the Rings and Ian Holm's performance, you notice it even more. I think that, what Martin Freeman, without, deliberately trying to copy Ian Holm, but just definitely those little inflictions that were there, that just a little bit that just made it so much, such a richer performance.
Yeah, it's just the little idiosyncrasies and the fact that he paid attention to it and tried to emulate it without it being overboard is a real testament to him as an actor.
Yeah.
Especially considering that Ian Holm is notorious for doing every single take of his performance differently.
Yes.
Like, I think there's probably about 20 different versions of the birthday speech that didn't make it into the movie, and each one is its own unique animal. So, but yeah, I thought he did a fantastic job. I thought Richard Armitage did a fantastic job. So, I did sort of feel like the climax to this movie was a little overdone and a little drawn out. At least initially. Maybe it'll feel more organic seeing it again. Probably because now I know I'll know what to expect, as opposed to the first time I'm like, okay, we know where this is all going. Can we just get there already?
Right. And I think that's the struggle with anyone that's a fan of the book and then a movie is made on it. You already feel like you already know where it's going, and you're like, yeah, let's just get there already. Mm-hmm. But sometimes they'll throw little things out there. Well, and obviously, anyone that's seen Peter Jackson's film should know it's not going to be the same, and he's going to throw some things in there that you might not expect.
And he certainly did. And he
definitely did, yeah.
And, okay, Jan is saying that more Beorn scenes have already been confirmed for the extended edition of Battle of the Five Armies, so yay for that.
Yes, I will say what I did see of him was awesome.
Yes,
but
the little, like, half a minute of it.
Yeah, the little bit we did see was really friggin' cool, but I want to see more.
I mean, I was really glad that we did at least get a glimpse of Beorn in full bear mode.
Yeah.
Just tearing into the army. We get a little bit of that. And I was really glad to see that. Like, I might have let out a little yelp of joy.
Yeah. I was also happy to see the Eagles.
Yeah, but
And
okay. Here's my one real criticism of this: is the Eagles in this I felt were sort of treated the same way the Army of the Dead was in Return of the King, where things seem to be going badly. They show up and turn the tide of the battle so completely that it's pretty much over as soon as they show up.
mm, yeah, I can see that. I can see why you think that.
Not to say that the Eagles aren't awesome, but
They always seem to show up just at the right time, exactly when you
yeah,
need them. And that's, I mean, that was true of, I'd say that's true of Lord of the Rings as well.
yeah,
Like, I think if I had been that fellowship or the company in the Hobbit, I'd be kind of mad at those eagles. Like, where were you, weeks ago when we really could have used you?
yeah. Well, like one of
I
my
mean, obviously we would have had shorter films, but,
yeah. Well, one of my favorite lines from the Lord of the Rings riff tracks. I don't know if you're familiar with that at all.
I have not seen those, no, but I want to.
Oh, okay. Um, one in Return of the King, when the Eagles rescue Frodo and Sam from Mount Doom, and you have that lingering shot of Frodo sort of half conscious in the Eagle's claws. Um, During that shot, one of the guys says, "Frodo was grateful, but couldn't help wondering where the hell these guys were 2 movies ago."
Yeah, really. I have seen that little cartoon,
Yeah.
the shortened version of Lord of the Rings
Oh, the
where,
how it should have ended.
yeah, just, Hobson the eagle flies over Mount Doom, drops in the
Mm-hmm.
ring, whee, and then they leave. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But again, we would have had much shorter films than.
Yeah. Yeah. Simply Smaug is asking, any conversations with Gwai here? Sadly, no.
No. No, they've pretty much left out. I was assuming since we didn't hear the Eagles talk
Yeah,
in the first film,
I wasn't
which
expecting
which
Gwai
kind
here
of
to
bummed
speak in
me.
this
I
either.
was
Yeah.
I was a little disappointed in that, and I figured, well, if we didn't hear him in that, we're not going to hear them
Mm-hmm.
in any of the other films. But
Well, I feel like Peter Jackson had a strong rule about no no talking animals unless we can find some way of making it work within a more realistic way. Um, so Smaug can talk because he's a dragon and dragons can talk. Um, I thought how they handled the spiders talking in Desolation was really well done with basically
right, the
Bilbo.
fact that he had the ring on, he could
Yeah,
hear them.
yeah. I thought that was really well done, and it sort of stuck with this thematic rule that Peter Jackson has had since the first movie.
Yeah, and I could see that, it would be very easy for it to become like Narnia, where all the animals talk, and
Yeah,
maybe they
yeah,
didn't
it
want to
could.
get into like it be too cartoonish. I can
Right,
see.
right.
I would have though. I think they still could have had at least the Eagles speak and it
Yeah.
not be that way. I think they still could have figured out how to do it, but
They probably could have if they really wanted to. I mean, there are ways to BS anybody out of this. Uh, but
But you
it
have to set it up at the beginning of the story and
right,
establish that
right,
yes, this is possible, but you can't have it not happen in, the first film, but then suddenly they start talking in the third one.
right, and so
That
like
then
that.
that would have looked weird.
Yeah, and so that's what that's what Peter Jackson established, and he stuck with it. So that's good for him.
Yeah.
Uh, so looks like Suzanne Button Lady has just arrived in the chat.
Hi,
Hello,
Suzanne.
hello, Button Lady. Or no,
Button
we have to say it the
lady.
right way. Button Lady. Cumberbatch.
Yeah, if only I could ever someday maybe I'll get him to say Deej, but I doubt that'll ever happen.
You know what?
It wouldn't
Honestly,
sound as cool as Button Lady
he could
anyhow.
probably make more than the royalties off of these movies simply by setting up a service of doing voicemails for people.
Oh, yeah.
Um, but it, but she only just arrived, and we're getting to a point now where we're probably going to have to start wrapping things up.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, uh,
All good things must come to an end.
unfortunately, we've sort of exhausted what we can talk about without getting into real spoiler territory. Um, Simply Smug is saying there were no animals serving the dwarves at Beorn's either. And that's very true.
Yeah.
And again, I sort of feel like that falls into it would have looked too cartoony or would have looked too much like Narnia.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not going to say I wasn't disappointed that they weren't there, but I can understand the reasoning. Um, okay, so Suzanne is wants to make a point about there is a there's a moment in the Battle of the Five Armies that looks like a Boris Vallejo poster, um, or what you might be able to see is the original Star Wars poster with Luke standing up with a lightsaber, and Leia is sort of like sprawled out and clinging to his leg.
Yeah.
Apparently, there is a moment at the end of the Dol Guldur scene, which I totally missed, where Galadriel pretty much does exactly that with Elrond.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I'll have to go back and
I'm gonna have to keep my eye out for that um, when I see it tomorrow.
yeah, yeah. And something else that I actually asked our staff about yesterday because I didn't remember it was, as you all know, Peter Jackson likes to make cameos in his films,
Yeah,
and I didn't catch his cameo in the third film. Although maybe I shouldn't say anything because then that might be a spoiler too, and we'll see if everybody can catch it. But someone pointed out to me exactly where his cameo was, and I will have to go back
yeah.
and look for it. But
I saw
I
that
did
email
see,
thread. Yeah.
Katie Jackson pops up, and I saw Dan Henna
Mm-hmm.
pop up, and a couple other folks. But yeah, I completely missed Peter Jackson.
Yeah, I missed him, but yeah, I saw that email thread, so now I know where to look
Yes, exactly.
next time I see it, so I can try to find him. Um, so yeah, I guess we can at least point out the scene so that when people watch it, they know what to look for. It is apparently during the auction of Bag End. He's one of the hobbits in the procession carrying stuff from Bag End away from it when Bilbo arrives. So
Yeah, so
gonna
be
ha-
paying attention towards the end of the film, and
gonna have to look for that.
it's like become a game with these films. Spot the PJ cameo.
Yeah, and I still haven't
Some
found
of
him.
them are quite obvious. I mean, some of
Yeah,
them are, you can't mistake him for anyone else, and
yeah.
other times you've got to really know where to look and when to catch him.
And so Simply Smug is asking next week full discussion with spoilers. I will probably talk more with the spoilers next week. At least then most people will have seen it. I think, except for people in Australia. I don't think it comes out in Australia until like Christmas.
Yeah, yeah, but yeah, I it's been very difficult on Facebook or and with my friends that haven't seen it yet, because I want
Yeah.
to tell them all this stuff. And some people have just come out and asked me about certain things, and they're like, "I don't care about spoilers, just tell me, and I will." But otherwise, I know I hate it when things people tell me things that I didn't necessarily want to know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and we've been trying to keep light on the spoilers here. I think for the most part we were
I think
successful.
I think so too. I mean, book stuff. Like I said, I'm guessing everyone listening has. I would hope everyone has read the book, and if you
So
haven't, you need to go out and buy a copy right now and read
yeah.
it. So,
So far nobody in the chat has said, "Oh God, I haven't read the book. Don't spoil that for me." If you haven't read the book, you shouldn't be on the book club, really.
yeah, yeah.
When we're
I've
talking
had
about the
people come
movie.
to our panels that
Well,
we
okay,
talk
I don't.
about, and we say at the very beginning of the panel, if you have not read the book and you don't want to know what happens, you need to leave. And some people have left,
Hmm.
some people haven't, and then they get upset when they find out that Thorin dies.
Yeah,
Sorry, spoiler, but it's a 75-year-old spoiler. So
yeah, and that's what we do at our panels at the panels out here too. And I will okay, I don't want to book shame anybody by saying you shouldn't be in the book club if you haven't read The Hobbit. If you haven't read it, that's fine. I'm of course going to recommend always that you do read it. It's a very simple, very easy, very fun read.
yeah, you can read it in a day pretty
But
easily, and
but
it's a fun
also
book.
but also this is a book club discussing the movie. Of course, we're going to make references to the book.
I would hope so.
Yeah. Um, So there one more thing that I will point out: there are certain creatures in this movie that I have a feeling some people may go, "Oh, those aren't in the books. Tolkien never wrote about creatures like that." And
Yeah, I almost brought that up, and then I thought, no, that's probably too much of a spoiler. But I
as long as
thought,
as
to
long as I
me, they
don't say,
seemed,
as long as
yeah,
we don't say what they are, I think we're okay.
yeah, to me, these creatures reminded me a lot of creatures in another
Yeah,
series
and
of books
me
and
and my friends
movies.
made jokes about that. But I will say I did some research. These creatures were written by Tolkien. He did create these things. It
Okay, because I was about to get out my books and see if I could find reference because I
yeah
didn't remember them, but that doesn't mean that
yeah
they
no
exist.
that he did write about them. Whether or not they were supposed to, whether or not they were actually in the Battle of the Five Armies, that's kind of not apparent. But
Right.
these are creatures that were sort of considered mythological in Middle Earth.
Right. And to me, as long as they are part of the Middle Earth world,
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a problem
Right,
with Peter
and
introducing something like that that necessarily wasn't in The Hobbit. Like, for example, Legolas. He
yeah,
wasn't mentioned in The Hobbit, but to me, it's entirely plausible. It makes sense that he would have been around in Mirkwood. He would have been
right,
around at the Battle of the Five Armies.
yeah,
So I didn't
and
have a problem with
yeah,
them putting him back in, just like I don't have them problem with putting creatures that might not have been referenced in The Hobbit, but were still part of Middle Earth
right.
showing up.
Um, and Suzanne is saying, well, they didn't fight in the battle, so okay, that's fair enough. They didn't fight in the battle.
Yeah, but it was
Uh,
still weird.
it was a little weird. It felt a
It was
little
unexpected. It was
it was
very
very unexpected.
unexpected.
Yes. But yes, these are creatures that Tolkien did write about, so we can claim that these are something new that they just
You can go
added.
into more detail next week on your show
Yeah.
about them.
Um, so God, there was something else I wanted to mention. Oh yeah, like with adding in Legolas into this, like I know we just posted an interview with Orlando Bloom on Torn, I think today or yesterday or something,
Hmm.
and of course he's saying, well, there's no reason that Legolas wouldn't have been there just because he wasn't in the book. Of course he was in the area, and I'm like, well, of course Orlando Bloom's gonna say that, like it's like otherwise he doesn't have a job. it's like
Right.
it's like is he like I
And I've been saying that as well in the panels, like, the speculation panels, even before it was
yeah
confirmed that Legolas was going to show up, like, will he? And the answer was, yeah, probably,
yeah.
because
And
again, there's no
I
reason
didn't
he wouldn't
think
have been in Mirkwood with his dad. And
yeah
of course he's going to be fighting alongside his dad with the rest of the elves at the Battle of the Five Armies.
I I I was expecting him to be more of a cameo than such a big part than playing such a big role in it as he does. But I didn't dislike it.
No, I didn't either. And again, there, as anyone that's seen the Lord of the Rings and the other Hobbit movies, they've got to give them something cool and over the top to do,
Mm-hmm.
and that's happens in this one as well. And I
Yeah.
won't say
Okay.
what, but it's very, to
There
me,
was
it was very over the top,
there
I
was
thought.
one move that he pulls in this that immediately I was like, oh my god, Peter Jackson is stealing from himself because there there's a move that Legolas pulls in this movie that is almost exactly a move that Adrian Brody pulls in King Kong.
Hmm.
It has to do with bats.
Yeah, you're right. I hadn't thought about that. I was thinking of another move that Legolas does in the Two Towers
Oh yeah,
that
yeah.
he does almost the exact same thing just in a different setting in
No,
this movie.
you're totally right. He does. He does. I know exactly what you're talking about, and yes. um,
But it wouldn't be a movie, if Legolas didn't do something elvish and cool and
yeah, I mean, I will say like his fight with well, okay, Bolg. Let's just say it. He fights Bolg. I felt that was really drawn out.
yeah, I thought so too.
Um, um, but uh, totally lost my train of thought. But yeah, like part of me is just like thinking now. I'm just imagining like if Orlando Bloom was like really like strictly like this wasn't in the book, so it shouldn't be in the movies. Just like seeing him like wandering around the set of The Hobbit, going, "This is BS, man. I shouldn't even be here."
Yeah, I doubt that's going to happen.
That probably did not happen.
I was kind of hoping that those creatures that we mentioned earlier that weren't in the book that show up, like, what if he had fought one of those?
I have a feeling it would have been very much like him taking on the Oliphant in Return of the King.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
Which, and of course, it would have looked like something else from another series, which I can't talk about without spoiling what these creatures are.
Everybody run out and go see this movie tomorrow or Tuesday.
I'll talk about it next week.
We can all talk about it, yeah.
But yeah, we're coming on. We're coming up on an hour and a half, and I know that you need to get going. So, or
I do need to leave pretty soon. Yeah.
And I'm afraid that if we keep the conversation going too much longer, we'll start.
We're gonna start letting things slip that we probably
we're gonna start spoiling stuff. So
yeah.
I apologize for not being able to keep up with the chat too much. Everybody is chatting a lot, and I can only see so much of it. But if there were, I hope I was able to address everything everybody was talking about. I did my best. If I missed something, I do apologize. But yeah, next week we'll be going more into the spoilers of this movie and talking about what we really thought about it. I don't know if you'll be able to make it for this, Rebecca. You're under no obligation to, of course, but
I will try. I'll have to see. It's I'm in the process of buying a house, and then with that and Christmas, it's been quite a busy month so far.
Yes, it has, and
then these movies and this little shindig that we're trying to put together in Los Angeles in February. There's been quite a lot going on, but
God, I'm so bored out here. There is nothing happening out here. Ugh.
Just a boring December.
Yeah. So yeah, next week will be more spoilery. The muzzle will be off. I Stole the One Ring is making this joke. Like, you can explain next week on how I didn't know this was an actual book. Yep. Yeah, she's been joking in the chat. You mean The Hobbit was a book? You mean Lord of the Rings was a book?
Oh, trust me, when the films came out, I was working the Lord of the Rings films came out, I was working in a bookstore, and I can't tell you the number of people that came up to me and said, "Do you have the book version of the Lord of the Rings movies?"
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I, have to hold my tongue and say, "Well, of course we do."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a.
And I'm sure that's happening. And though, if these films, I know there are people that don't like these films, and that's fine. But if these films get people to read The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings and all of other Tolkien's other works, to me that is a very good thing. And
that's always something for the
generations to read these books and to keep them alive.
And like that's why when people like really get down on these movies, like they're not faithful to the books and this and that and all this other stuff, I'm like, I can't disagree with you. Like, there are obviously choices throughout this entire course of films that I probably would not have made if I were making these movies. I don't think that made the movies bad. They made them different than what I was expecting, but ultimately these movies are making these books more popular than they've ever been. And I think that is all for the good, because these are great books that should be read by lots of people. I feel like The Hobbit should be something that parents read to their kids.
Yeah, and books and movies are different mediums, and they are not going to translate exactly the same. And I have never seen a movie based on a book that was 100% exactly the same, word for word, shot for shot, for the book. And I don't necessarily want to, because if I wanted that, I mean, reading a book, that when the images and the people that I see in my head, that's kind of my movie.
Yeah.
And Peter Jackson, his films are the images and the ideas that he had in his head and that he's projecting onto the screen. And so
Hmm.
that's just his interpretation, and everyone's got their own interpretations, but it doesn't make them bad, or it just makes them different, which
Yeah,
is totally fine.
yeah, and I mean, like, I have my criticisms of the movies, all six of them, but I like all six of them. In fact, in most
I,
cases, I love them.
yeah, oh, me too. I mean, there are still a couple of things in Return of the King that just make me so angry that they changed. But that doesn't mean that I don't love those films and
Yeah,
that they have a special place in my heart and always will.
yeah,
And just like The Hobbit, there are things that I would have rather they not done, or rather that, things that I wish they had done.
yeah,
But, again, that's one person's interpretation
yeah,
of that story.
and that's and that's perfectly okay. I mean, I know there are many people on our on Torn staff who truly hate these movies. Like,
Yes, there are.
there are a couple, and quite frankly, I kind of wish they'd speak up more just to have that conversation.
Right.
But
Yeah.
but I understand they're like afraid of people like sort of shooting them down or like being antagonistic with them, which I kind of wish was not the case, but will probably happen.
I think you can be critical and still be fair
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
without being insulting. I
Yeah.
think, I mean, like, we've said, we both have said there are things about all of the films that we aren't crazy about. And
Hmm.
again, that would be another book club discussion.
Yeah, but I
We could
mean,
spend
like
hours
when it
talking
comes down
about
to
that.
it, there's no such thing as a perfect movie. There's no such thing as a perfect
No.
adaptation, but these are very good.
Exactly. Yeah. I think they, as far as the capturing the spirit of Tolkien
Hmm.
and Middle Earth, I think
Yeah.
they all succeed in that. So,
Hmm.
some people disagree, and that's okay.
Yeah. So, Jan is asking me what Cliff's opinion of Battle of the Five Armies is. I don't know. Actually, I don't think he's read. I don't think he's seen it yet. I think tomorrow's line party will be his first time seeing it. Um,
Yeah, you need to try to get him on the show next week, and
well,
too.
he'll probably have lots to say on Torn Tuesday about it, but I'll be
Yeah.
I'll be curious to see what he has to say. It's hard for me to get. It's hard for Cliff and I to sort of get our schedules to mix on our shows because we're usually at work during the times when the other one is doing their show.
Um,
Um, so unfortunately, that hasn't worked quite as well. But I mean, I we will be talking tomorrow after we see Battle of the Five Armies for sure. Um, and I'm sure that he will say everything he wants to say on Torn Tuesday, and then some. Because Cliff is not a soft spoken man.
no, and yeah, Cliff has some. I'm sure he'll have some great insight,
Oh,
and
of course, he always does.
yeah, and whether you agree with him or not, he's always, he's never boring.
No, no, this is
Cliff
true,
is never boring.
and I mean, he and I did not agree about Desolation of Smaug. He was much harder on it than I was, but I totally see where he's coming from. I don't think he's wrong. I just I I thought it was okay for what it was. Um, but I will be curious to see what he has to say. Excuse me. Um, so yeah, let's bring this review to a close. Thank you everybody for joining in on the discussion again. If I wasn't able to get to your question in the chat, I do apologize. Hopefully, we'll be able to talk in more detail next week when the muzzle comes off. Um, as a reminder, the book of the month for December is The Martian by Andy Weir. Um, and we also have this little party thing happening in February. Be sure to go to our Indiegogo page and buy a ticket. And if you can't afford to buy a ticket or to come, uh, we'd love it for you to show some support in other respects, in on other levels. And we also have goodies and prizes and giveaways and all that stuff going on too. So, thank you, Rebecca, for coming on and talking Battle of the Five Armies with me. Um, I hope you enjoyed it.
I did. Thank you so much for having me, and I had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I'm always happy to talk Tolkien
Yeah.
anytime. And yeah, I hope everybody listening had fun, and I hope you can all join us in February for our one last party. As Josh has said, our Indiegogo site, we've got some really cool stuff. Even, if you're not able to join us, we've got some cool autograph stuff you can buy. Some really cool little perks, and even if it's just a few dollars, just to support. Every dime that we get off is going straight to the party. None of us are making anything off of it. I can tell you that.
If
We'll
nothing,
all just be
yeah,
happy to be there, really.
yeah. If nothing, I think we're all sort of losing money on this. At least us personally.
Yeah, I mean, and the cool thing about that I've loved about being a part of the OneRing.net is all of the amazing people that I've gotten a chance to become friends with. That we're scattered all over the world,
Yeah.
and we don't get many chances to see each other. So this is going to be a great opportunity, and to hang out with other fans as well, because we're all fans just like everyone else is,
Yeah.
and it's and if this occasional celeb pops up and says hi, that's a plus.
Yeah.
Who knows
Yeah. It would
who
be
knows who'll show up.
it would be great if Angelina Lee showed up.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be great if everybody showed up, but
Yeah.
those guys are busy. They have careers
Yeah.
and lives, and
Yeah.
uh, you know, I'm sure if they could be there, they would. But so
Yeah. Yeah.
we'll see. We'll find out in February.
Yeah, it's going to be a great party regardless because the fans will be there, and the fans are what make these parties so great. And
Yes.
and it's why, like, as stressful as putting these things together is, I love being a part of it. And I can't say I'll be sad that we're not going to be doing something on this scale again, because it does at least make life a little simpler. But I will be sad that we won't have as much FaceTime with as many fans as these parties allow anymore, unless we're able to come up with some excuse later on down the line to do something like this again.
Well, the 20th anniversary of the release of Fellowship of the Ring is coming up in 2021, which is not that far off.
No, that's true.
So,
That's very true.
there's always that. And there's always the, extended editions of all six movies,
Yep.
giant box set that we can celebrate.
Yep.
And, maybe someday we will get that HBO miniseries of the Silmarillion.
Yeah.
Because I want to see an army of Balrogs.
That would be amazing.
If that's all I could, that's if I had one wish, it would be that.
It could happen. It probably won't for a very long time. We'll probably have a Lord of the Rings reboot in between now and then.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll have, with Tobey Maguire as Frodo or something.
Oh, please, God. Don't even suggest that. I don't want to see Frodo given the ugly cry.
Now, I would not be a bit surprised if within my lifetime, and all of our lifetimes, we did not see somebody try to reboot the Lord of the Rings, or the Hobbit, or both.
You know what? Honestly, at this point, now you can do the Hobbit first, if you're going to do a reboot and do it right.
Yeah.
But yeah. So yeah, we'll bring this to a close before everybody starts talking about everything they want to see in a Silmarillion miniseries, which is a show unto itself.
Oh yeah, or they who would you recast in the Lord of the Rings and Hobbit films?
Oh God, no! I don't want to do this again.
Maybe Pixar will do an animated version of the Hobbit, or they'll try to redo the Lord of the Rings or something.
That would be amazing.
Or we'll get a Rover Random animated movie, or.
Oh man, Rover Random, that would be cool.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah. Okay, all right. So before we get too much into that sort of speculation, let's
again a topic for another show.
Yeah, let's say farewell. Auf Wiedersehen. Goodbye. Thank you all for joining us and everybody who has been along for this ride. Uh, we're not going to really um, we're not going to have experiences like this again for a long time. Uh, this has been a great ride, and I'm looking forward to seeing everybody's opinions as they come streaming in on the Battle of the Five Armies. And so I will see you all next week. Never stop reading, and thank you again. Goodbye.